And we are live. There we go. Oh, excellent. Thanks for joining me, Marty. I,
Terrific to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. For the first time watching this, this is Marty Abbott. He's the president of the IM Group. And what we're doing today is I'm highlighting for FPSA, which is Food Production Suppliers Association. Inside of that, we have this design build network and kind of highlighting some assets that people don't necessarily know about in the design build process or ecosystem. And Marty does exactly that. And I've been introduced to Marty. You and I have been now familiar a couple months, right?
Yeah.
And each time I talk to him, I feel like I'm educated a little bit more about what he does and the value he brings. So IM stands for Incentive Management. So Marty, why don't you kind of give us a understanding of what that even means in this industry?
Sure. One of the ways in which during the design build process you can attack the cost issue and the return on investment issue is to bring in the process of taking a look at incentives that are available to reduce costs. And those incentives come from state, county, and local governments, and in some cases, the federal government. The incentives are designed to induce companies to locate in a particular state, but even companies that have one location that they're interested in and don't have a competitive state available can utilize the incentives by essentially identifying that they're trying to get to a return on investment level that they're currently not at. And many projects in the design build phase start out at below the threshold level of return on investment for the company that's sponsoring the project, doing the project. So the incentives come from, as I said, state, county, local, and federal. And the incentives are essentially, the short story is they're a sharing of the taxes that the state, county, and local governments are going to get from the project. They're going to share some of that money with you. They'll share it in different ways. They're not simply going to reduce the taxes in all cases. But let's say that you've got a project that is generating 50 to 100 million of tax revenue over a period of 10 years. You're likely to get, in various forms, you're likely to get 5 to 10% of that back to offset the cost of capital and other costs associated with the project. So you're dealing with $100 million of taxes over 10 years. You're going to get $10 million of incentives in various forms. And there's probably 7 or 8 or 10 frequently used forms of incentives. There are tax reductions, property tax reductions, very common. Income tax reductions for the corporation, very common. Infrastructure improvements, grants to help training, and so forth. So that's sort of the overview. Most companies don't take full advantage of it. Some take advantage of what are called statutory incentives, and those are available to everybody. You don't even have to ask for them. You have to fill out forms. Most companies do that pretty well. The other form of incentives, called discretionary incentives, or sometimes referred to as negotiated incentives, those are only available if you ask for them and you make a case for them. And the truth of the matter is probably only 2 out of 7 or 2 out of 10 companies do any kind of a reasonably good job at that. But if you know the process, you can get to that 5 to 10% sharing of the taxes, and you can get, in many cases, up to 10% of your capital cost to be in the form of incentives to reduce that capital.
It's kind of what I'm hearing, which is why you would be popular for a lot of folks, is it's almost like having an accountant. Like, I know I have tax breaks available to me, but I don't necessarily know what they are. I don't know how to get them. I don't know where to put them in the right boxes, right? So I hire somebody to do that, right? And it seems like that's essentially what you're responsible to help people get across the finish line for these incentives.
Yeah, and we do the same thing in a way that a tax advisor or a financial advisor would do. Is we sit down, we get all of the facts relative to the project. We then come back with a analysis, usually in 2 to 4 weeks, that says, here are all of the opportunities that you have to reduce those costs. And here's the timing of how they'll flow in by a year, whether they impact your balance sheet or whether they impact your profit and loss statement and so forth. So in a very short period of time, anywhere in that design build process, we can come in and identify what is highly likely on a state-by-state basis. There will be 3 states that we want to profile. So we can do that, and we're generally within probably 10%. We're trying to be at 90% of the real number. So it's a process that we have repeated that process for major corporations. McCain Foods is our longest standing client. We started with them in 2008. When we do a project for them, we basically get together with their capital investment team on a monthly basis, take a look at the updates, see what the impact is on the incentives. So we're constantly making adjustments, and that process can go on for 6 or 8 months before we actually go out and have conversations with state, county, and local governments to get the incentives.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like it's almost as necessary to have that extra person like yourself involved, because it seems like a lot of work to keep all the balls in the air. If you're already doing a job internally, right, to augment the team to help you with this kind of stuff, it seems, So how you said for like 4 to 6 weeks to even get the, I mean, that's to me, that's short, right? That's a short term. That's a quick turnaround for you to kind of help analyze a business. How early in the process would you say you want to be in, you want to start talking to folks within organizations?
Well, ideally, it's as early as there's 2 things that trigger us to want to be involved at a particular point in time. If there is a timetable that's been established, that's one of the triggers. And if there's a team that's been established in the corporation, that's the other trigger. When those 2 things happen, it's real enough and there's enough data available for us to begin to do our work. And just like any other cost consideration, you want to take a look at, especially the major costs, you want to take a look at those costs and reduce them as soon as you can in that process. And our cost is not a cost, it's cost offset. You want to know as much about that as soon as you can and build that into the process.
Who's most likely to talk to you? Give me kind of a profile of, say, like a food, because obviously we're, our
Yep.
audience is kind of the food manufacturing. Who
Yeah.
internally wants to talk to you, as far as roles and responsibilities? Who's that?
Yeah,
look
it
like?
can be a number. It can be a number of individuals. Obviously, the CFO and people in the financial arena are the best people for us to talk to in terms of getting them to understand the process that we're involved in. From a decision-making standpoint, it always turns out that the chief operating officer or the head of operations, depends on the title, that person who's involved in managing, from an executive standpoint, managing the projects and spending the capital, is the person that really makes the decision to hire us, because our costs are not insignificant. They're not outrageous either, but it's an outside resource. It's an outside resource that will have knowledge of a very important and confidential activity. So yeah, it's generally a CFO introduction to a chief operating officer, or the other way around. Both of them have to be.
Yeah. Now, when I first started talking, I always envisioned, the greenfield project, right? The ones where they don't have a location. You're going to battle 2 states against each other to help and, get these incentives. But you also talked about Kane Foods as kind of an ongoing. What
Sure.
can you do for a company, like, even on an ongoing process? They don't actually have need a new location. What can you do for companies like that?
We get together with McCain Foods twice a year. We review with their capital team the investments that will be made that are new in a 6-month period.
Yeah.
And we'll do a projection on whether there are incentives available to offset those costs. It
Okay.
can be as simple as a piece of machinery that's replacing other machinery, but you're generally talking about millions of dollars of cost. We're not going to talk to anybody about $1 million item that's coming in to replace another item and so forth. But we're knowledgeable about all the state programs, whether it's for a full expansion, jobs being added, huge capital being invested, or whether it's a project that's going to be a small expansion. The minimum number of jobs, and this is important to as a trigger in your thinking, the minimum number of jobs that we can get incentives for would be 10 new jobs per year. So it's a pretty low threshold.
Yeah.
But and the capital expenditure in many states doesn't have to be significant. We've worked on projects where a company is adding 10 jobs a year, but they're only spending $500,000, and we're able to get incentives. So those are the trigger points, basically. The capital alone is a little bit difficult to get incentives, but the capital with jobs is easy.
Yeah. I can see that being big triggers, the jobs. Yeah. I mean, for those who, for those who are listening to this, I was interested with Marty discussion because, where I'm at on the engineering, I have conversations with folks about these expansions, these new projects and everything else. And some of the people who might be listening to this also on the GC side, same thing. So I look at you as like a value add, right? Someone to bring into the conversation regardless, or make the introduction regardless. I look at you as somebody who is going to help me look better to my client. So anyone listening to this is just a good person to know and bring into the conversation, because we'll have an honest and succinct conversation of what you can and cannot do for a potential client. We have made one introduction so far with a potential client. That client hasn't made any major moves yet, so we haven't really gotten to get any farther than that. But it was great. I felt comfortable with you just saying, here, let me make the introduction. And in return, you've also helped make some introductions for me as well. So I think you're just a great asset in general. So tell me about your team a little bit. You're basically, you have a couple guys.
Let me give you the service package, and then we can talk about the team. The service package is not only that analysis, which we call opportunity identification and strategy development. You would always expect that we would do a big name on it. Opportunity identification and strategy development. So we not only identify all of the incentives that are possible, but we also, for each state, we identify how we're going to go out and get those. When we get to the point where the project is 3 months before a board decision, sometimes 6 months before a board decision, when everybody understands that we're about at that stage, that's when we get a green light to go out into the field, meaning we will talk with state, county, local government, and federal officials and actually begin the process of getting offers for those incentives. The way it works is we go out, we ask, we provide data, and then we get offers. And those offers come in, they get vetted by us, by the corporation, they get signed at some point in time. They may even be signed multi-state offers, because the offer isn't valid until you actually make a decision and make an announcement. And then the other part of that is there are contracts for each one of the incentives. So phase one is the opportunity identification. Phase two is put the incentives in place, go out and obtain those incentives. And that's a 3 to 6 month period of time. Then the announcement can take place. Very important that we are always involved at least 3 months, hopefully 6 months before an announcement takes place. And then the last phase of it is the building takes place, the construction takes place, the jobs are added. We begin the process of working with the company to gather the information each year to report out on the commitments that the company made relative to capital investment, relative to job ads, relative to wages, and so forth. And we report those. It's called compliance and administration. That's our third phase. And we will do that for 18 to 20 years with some clients like McCain Foods, because the incentives, contrary to what the media often says, or the impression that they give, the incentives are on the basis of performance. So if you've committed to add jobs when you add those jobs, more than likely 90% of the incentives will be a trigger caused by the activity on the part of the corporation to meet its commitment. When that happens, we report out to the state. We added 10 jobs this year, or whatever the number is, and then the state releases the incentives associated with that. So the compliance and reporting is critical to earn the incentives and actually get them to impact your P&L, mostly P&L. So that's the service package. Our team, we have a total of 7 people. We're virtual, so I've got a couple of people who are out of the country. I've got somebody in Florida. I've got somebody in Ohio. I've got somebody in New Jersey. That's the team, and the client-facing team for most of the important period of time, which is the identification of the incentives and then the obtaining of the incentives, are 3 people, and all experienced in not only working with clients, but also obviously working with state, county, and local governments.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you giving us this. If anyone wants to kind of find you, obviously I'll provide some links below, but I think you're pretty easy to find online as well. It's the website's the-imgroup.com. So that's an easy one.
Right.
Obviously, if someone hits me up, I'll share his email address, and I'll make the introduction as well. So, Marty, again, I appreciate you coming on and spending a couple moments with me. You and I'm sure keep talking, but I really wanted to get your name out there a little bit more and identify you as somebody who's a great strategic partner for anybody who's in this industry and the tip of the spear like we are and part of this design build network. So thanks for your time today. Again, anyone want to reach out, thanks for everybody for watching. This is Ben Reeder. I'm the director of sales and marketing for the Weber Smith Group. Weber Smith is an A&E firm, an architecture and engineering firm in the food and beverage industry. So look out for more of this kind of videos that are upcoming, and hope everyone has a great day. Take care.
Thanks, Ben.